All right, let's get started. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. For the next hour or so, we'll be covering the topic, your guide to a successful security champion program. I'm very excited about this topic. It is the first time in my time at Katilyst that we talk about this in a webinar, and we have the best guests, in my opinion, possible for addressing this topic. My name is Maxime Cartier, Head of Human Risk at Hoxhunt, and I will be your host today. About my background, I've led and contributed to security awareness, behavior, and culture change programs for several global organizations in manufacturing, aerospace, and retail. So, for example, leading the security culture program at H&M Group. And with me today is Dustin Lehr. Dustin has led large-scale security initiatives at Staples and Fivetran while founding Katilyst, a service that makes it easy to launch and scale security champions programs. He also wrote the Security Champions Program Success Guide, a free resource for security teams looking to build high-impact champions program. And in his free time, he hosts a community space called Let's Talk Software Security. Thanks for joining us today, Dustin. Really glad to have you.
Oh, absolutely. I love this topic, so I appreciate the opportunity to come and talk about it.
Thanks so much. And today we'll be covering the following agenda. So first, Dustin will explain what a security champion program actually is. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the concept, but we'll go through that. And then we'll list kind of the steps to get started to build a great and successful program. And finally, we'll highlight together some success stories and mistakes to avoid also. And as I said, we'll save time at the end to answer some questions from the audience. So please submit them as we go. And with that, I'll leave the floor to you to start with, at least, Dustin. What is a security champion program?
So let's dive in. Let's talk about what a security champion program is. And I think one important note here before we really dive into the details is this is not a replacement for your cybersecurity staff shortages. Okay. Some people think of security champion programs as a way to have other people across the organization essentially do the security team's job. And that's not what this is all about. The way I love to talk about security champion programs is sort of beginning with the end in mind. Ideally, you would have people across your organization following security best practices, security habits, security behaviors. And a security champion program is a way to get there. It's a way to find volunteers, find allies who believe in the things that you're trying to push the rest of your org to do. Reporting phishing emails, reporting security issues as they see them, and so forth. It's a really good starting place to say, okay, where are the people across my org who maybe are already doing these things or are willing to step up and spend more time focused on these things so that you can spread the news, spread that awareness through the champion across the rest of the organization. So I have a slide here that shows the model. And I think what's really important here is champions essentially act as a liaison so that the message from the security team can reach the rest of the organization through the champions. And the champions have more context about their individual teams. So they're able to tailor the message to their team. So instead of you as the security, awareness professional, et cetera, having to understand the way that all the teams work and tailoring the message yourself, you can utilize the champions to essentially get that message out. It's also a two-way communication. So as you can see, there are double arrows here because the hope is that you're learning from the teams and the champions across the organization about what's working, what's not working. Maybe there are gaps. Maybe there's things that the security team should be doing better, et cetera. So that's essentially the concept.
And would you say that it's a formal or an informal role? Like, is it something that someone takes willingly and is just, they might feel that they do some extra work for security, or should it be, a formalized part of a job position?
Yeah, I think it does depend. I think if you have support, especially from leadership, to make this a formal role with all the bells and whistles, which might include proper rewards, funding, official resources to help drive this program with training and all of that sort of stuff. If you have that, you're one of the lucky ones. It doesn't always turn out that way. And I think having your champions be in more of an informal role as a way to create a grassroots movement, if you will, like I was saying before, find your allies, start to work with them, maybe meet with them more often, et cetera. You don't need all the bells and whistles to just get started. So again, there's kind of two different approaches, and it has to do with whether or not you have that leadership support and funding, et cetera, to make it official. If you don't, it doesn't mean you don't get started. You can still do more of a grassroots program.
Fantastic. So in summaries, your security champions are your allies in the organization and people that will help you to kind of share the good word about security, but also that you can learn from.
Exactly. Yep. And they become that liaison, as I was saying before. All right, so let's move on. So why do I need a security champion program? And this is what I was talking about before. Effective security requires everyone's participation. So kind of going back to your question around, is this official or not? Ideally, you would build quality controls, expectations of security behavior into the job descriptions of everyone across your organization, right? And that's not necessarily something that you can do right away, okay? So the way I like to think about it is in parallel with making this official, getting leadership support, working with HR to maybe modify some of the job descriptions, et cetera, to make it very, very clear that this is an expectation. But that takes time. It takes, again, that leadership support and so forth. So in parallel, if you can also build allies and start that grassroots movement and sort of meet in the middle, you've got a top-down approach, where everything is official and leadership supports it, et cetera. But you also have that grassroots movement where you have a subset of people that are doing these things, and you can start to prove an ROI on that as well. And that might be something that leadership needs to see, right? Hey, look, if we're getting ahead of this stuff, we're avoiding breaches, we're avoiding vulnerabilities being introduced into the environment. We're getting more reported issues and all of that stuff from this subset of people through my grassroots movement. What do you think about building that into the rest of the organization? And then, if you could prove that ROI, then the idea is leadership would buy into that. You can make it more official. Does that make sense?
Yes, always start somewhere. You cannot start with a big bang and having a lot of resources, but start somewhere and prove your impact. I think that's key.
Exactly. And I like the way you said that, because I do think what we do in cybersecurity is difficult. And one of the things that I like to say a lot is there are other people in your org who believe in what you're doing. It may seem like there isn't, hey, I send newsletters, I try to communicate, no one says anything, no one responds, et cetera. But if you can seek out people and have one-on-one conversations and start to listen to folks and build relationships, et cetera, there will be people who emerge who believe in what you're doing, and those become your champions. All right, so let's talk about essentially a strategy for cybersecurity in general. And I built this some time ago. I like to think about it as a foundation, right, for a building, where when the building is complete, you're consistently preventing risk at your organization. Now, it takes a while to get there. That's not something that you could just sort of do overnight. Hey, we're preventing risk all of a sudden. So what I like to do is talk about it from the bottom up, right? Building a foundation where, like I mentioned before, you're actually connecting and building relationships with folks so that you have their ear, and the opposite is true as well, right? You're listening to them and their feedback and so forth, and you're strengthening those relationships across your organization so that you can move to step 2 and help spread awareness, educate, communicate about the importance of security, et cetera, to step 3, finding risk across your organization. Now, you cannot, in my experience, build a proper long-term case for preventing risk without demonstrating that there's risk in your environment to begin with, right? Or another way that I like to think about it is, if you're doing a pen test and you're analyzing corporate security, et cetera, across your organization, and you're finding there's no risk, which isn't really a realistic example. That doesn't ever happen, just so everyone knows. But if you find no risk, then what controls do you need to put into place to prevent risk? You already have them, apparently, right? So what you have to do is find risk that currently exists. Hey, we are clicking too many phishing emails, right? We are sharing data out in places that aren't proper, right? Maybe we're uploading to, insecure file share sites or whatever. You're finding these instances that are happening across your environment. And then the idea is step 4, you're addressing those things. But I think it's really important to also step back and do a root cause analysis for how these things happen so that you can prevent risk going forward. Does that make sense? So kind of working backward, find risk in your environment, make sure you address that risk, but then also making sure you put controls in place to prevent that risk going forward. Questions or thoughts about that?
Yeah, no, I think it aligns really well actually with what we were talking just before about the, start somewhere, improve your impact. I think that's what I said before. And to prove your impact, well, you need a risk to begin with. Identify this risk very clearly, maybe measure it, and that way, once you do an intervention, and that can be your security champions program or some interventions part of your security champions program, that's your opportunity to show actually that impact, to show that you focus on this very specific risk. That was, the status in the beginning. This is what we've done. And this is what we did now, how we are now. And, maybe we change the behavior by 80% or reduce the risk by 70%.
That's exactly right. And there is a point I was going to get to later, but I think it's important to talk about this now, is that your champion program should be very tightly integrated into your awareness program in general. They should be the same. It's not this sort of separate thing. Hey, we do awareness, we do all these traditional awareness things, communicate, posters, newsletters, training, etc. And then we also have champions. They're kind of off to the side. We just kind of do some things with a few people. No. That entire communication strategy should be centered around, like I was sharing before, those liaisons who can carry the message better to your org than you can. And that's a little bit of a hard-hitting statement that people are more likely to listen to their peers talk about security than they are to you as a security professional. You're just so easy to brush off. Like, you're supposed to be talking about that, Maxim, right? Of course, that's your job. But it's only when their peer starts to talk about better practices that they're like, oh, okay, so this is a real thing. And you're speaking to me in the context of the way my team works and so forth. This starts to make sense. All right, let's talk about this concept a little bit more using the diffusion of innovation theory. And I came across this some years ago. It's essentially a normal curve that represents your population at your company. And the point that I was making before is ideally you would have everyone across your organization following secure behaviors, doing secure habits, doing secure actions, and so forth. But how do you get there? Okay. And this graph does a nice job of explain how something catches on, whether it's new innovations, new technology, new products like the smartphone, which I'll go through that example in a second, or how change catches on across your org. So let's talk about the smartphone for a second. Think about when you first learned about the smartphone, right? Were you someone who jumped straight on board? Like, you get in line, you want to be the first one to get the first iPhone, et cetera. Or were you kind of like, I don't know what this is. I have a laptop, I have a flip phone, I'm feeling pretty good. I was a little bit more on that hesitation side, right? And I would describe those folks as laggards on the way right side. The folks who are like, I don't know about this. This feels, this makes me nervous. And then the innovators, the ones who are lined up at the door to get the first ones, And early adopters, right? Those are the people who essentially get excited about the change or get excited about that new product. Okay. Then they start to tell their friends about the smartphone and how cool it is, et cetera. They cross the chasm, and eventually the majority starts to catch on. And eventually, yes, even the laggards catch on as well. And I do have a smartphone, of course, just like everybody else. So it's the same thing with the way that security best practices are going to catch on across your organization. You can't just expect to send a couple emails and do a few trainings, and then all of a sudden people are going to jump on board. Instead, you have to think about it like a subset of people. The people on the left of the graph here are going to get it. Those are your champions. Those are the folks that are going to carry this message to help you cross the chasm to reach everybody else, including the laggards eventually. And I've got one story where I was trying to roll out security best practices across the organization. I did meet some resistance. There's a particular manager that I can think about who completely resisted it. This was in the AppSec space. So he was like, this is just not really for us. We're busy. We can't really do this. So I was like, okay, I didn't push too hard. And then I turned around and worked with the champions that did want to get involved. And eventually over years, which is important, right? It does take time for this to happen. But eventually I did reach that manager, and he actually signed up to become a security champion himself. So I felt like that was a huge win. Questions about this? Does this make sense?
This is great to hear. A great story. And I think this is quite typical. I see here there's 2.5 and 13.5% of early adopters and innovators. And I think that very often also what we see as security awareness managers is that when you do something that is purely voluntary, let's say that you share a video on the internet or launch an event and open it to everyone, what's the percentage of people that you reach? 10%, maybe 20% if you're lucky. So that's kind of this population, the people who are already motivated and invested in security and they're excited about it. But there's still 80%, the rest of the organization, that is not there yet. They're not that excited and involved and motivated by security at the moment, right? So it takes time to get to involve everyone, and using the power, this grassroots movement. I love when you say that, of this 20% of or 15 or 20% of innovators or early adopters. It seems like a great way to start to get the rest of the organization.
Absolutely. And I think one important point here is, in order to cross that chasm and reach the rest of your org, you have to empower those early adopters and innovators to carry that message. What message? Make that clear. Why are they best positioned to do it, right? Give them some purpose, give them some motivation, right? And we'll get into that in a little bit, but so that they're motivated and they know that they'll be recognized, et cetera, for spreading the word across the rest of the organization. So that's really the key here. All right. I already mentioned this. I know it's hard to hear. People will listen more closely to their peers who they trust than to us, than to you as a security professional. So that's, again, hard to hear, but very true. All right, so let's talk about motivation a little bit more. And there is a model that I like to refer to a lot. It's BJ Fogg's behavior model, where if you want to see a behavior take place, you need three things. You need motivation. They have to be motivated to actually do that activity, whatever it is. They have to have the ability, and they have to have a reminder or a trigger or a prompt so that they will actually do the behavior. So let's actually go into some details here. So if we want to, let's say, see people attend a live security awareness talk, which I know, a lot of us do, and sometimes the results are, well, not a lot of people showed up or not enough people showed up, et cetera. Well, let's talk about what would motivate people to actually show up to something like this and how to tap into the secrets here, right? And I've spent a lot of time now at this point studying human behavior, behavioral science, et cetera, to sort of unlock the secrets for motivating folks. So the first one that I have listed here is curiosity. Did you actually set up a topic that makes people curious about it? So maybe it's in the title or the description. Are you just saying, fishing? Next week, we're going to talk about fishing. Or is it something engaging, like a question? Have you wondered how phishing emails lead to actual attacks? Have you ever wondered that? Come join us and see. That might pique people's curiosity. Is it a relevant topic to them? That's another way to motivate them. Did they suggest the topic? Do you allow them to make suggestions about topics? Because I will guarantee if someone suggested a topic that you end up going with, they will show up and they will invite their friends as well because it's their topic. Maybe there's some extrinsic motivator, like they get points or some sort of reward, et cetera, for attending. Maybe they want to impress their boss, which is a little bit more of a social thing. Hey, not only do I do my day job, I also care about this awareness thing as well, and so forth. Let's talk about ability. They have to be able to join it, right? It has to be at a convenient time. If it's not in their time zone, et cetera, they're going to join. Do they know how to join? Is there a video call link that's easily accessible? It's on their calendar, et cetera. It's just right there in front of them. And then do they have support from their leadership as well? Does their leadership encourage them to go? Or is it like, well, what are you wasting your time with, right? That sort of thing. And then a prompt, again, has to be on their calendar so that it just sort of shows up in their day. Maybe you send reminders, et cetera. You have to work harder at this than I think people realize. It's not like, again, put yourself in their headspace. So for us, we're like, hey, we really care about security. How could you miss this? We really care. For them, it's a little bit like, well, I'm very busy and I'm not necessarily going to prioritize this by default. So continuing to kind of remind people and invite them and have their champion invite their team and so forth is a way to prompt this behavior. Any questions about this?
I use this model also continuously. It's great to share it because it's a great way to think about why people do or don't do things, right? And when you want people to do something and you don't know why they're not doing it, think about those three elements, right? Is there, do we motivate them, or are there any demotivating factors actually? Is it easy enough, right? They have the ability, but basically the question behind that is it easy to do? And do they just have a prompt? That's the kind of simple, stupid things, but sometimes it's missing, right? And if there's no prompt, the action is not going to happen. So it's a great model. And Dustin, how do you relate that to the Security Champions program?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mentioned before having the champions prompt their team as an example. This might be something that is missing. Perhaps you put it on the calendar, et cetera, and it's just there, and you're like, okay, everyone should show up because I made it very enticing and we've got a really cool speaker and so forth. It's on the calendar. Why don't people show up? Well, a way to prompt them to show up is to utilize the champions to carry that message. I also mentioned a relevant topic. How can you, and I had talked about this before, in terms of the champions really do understand how their team works way better than you do. So how can you encourage the champions to maybe shift the message a little bit about the topic to be relevant for their team specifically? Maybe it's the finance team and the topic is phishing, like I was saying before. Well, maybe they can say, hey, did you know that finance folks are one of the top folks who are phished in general because they have access to money and accounts and so forth? So this would be a really good session for our team to join. That's something that the champion can sort of, prompt their team with, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. So now I'm really curious about going forward and understanding how to build the Security Champions program.
Yes, absolutely. And I, like you mentioned, thank you for mentioning it. I did build a guide that's free out there, the Security Champion Success Guide, Program Success Guide. And the reason I did that is because I didn't find enough information on the internet at the time that helped people understand how to actually build a program like this. It was more like, you should build a program, here's why, and so forth. Okay, but how? So I really break down all of the steps that you need to go through to make sure that your champion program is tailored for your culture and so forth.
And we'll share the link in the chat now.
Yeah, fantastic. And as you can see, it is a process. It's a step-by-step. Here's what you should do first, etc. It's not a formula, if you will. It's not, hey, just do these 3 things and your program is going to work, because it doesn't work like that. Like I was saying before, every culture is different. So you have to come up with your unique vision, your unique goals and so forth of your awareness program, and then go from there. All right, so let's talk about a little bit of the motivation side. And this is a topic that I talk about a lot, and there's more in the guide about this entire thing. But I really want to talk about rewards, because I do think when people think rewards, they say, oh, money, swag, and maybe pizza to get people to show up. That's it. Those are the rewards. Right? Is that all? No. And I found this through the gamification world, which I mentioned before. I got way into behavioral science, et cetera, and gamification, which is always something that fascinated me. I think it's important to define the term gamification while we're here, because I do think people misunderstand that to some degree. It's not about turning it into a game specifically. Like, we don't play games at work, so gamification is not for us. That's not the point. The point is to learn motivators that games use effectively and apply them to your situation, your organization, et cetera, without necessarily making it into a game. You're just taking those techniques and applying them. So my favorite example of that is actually our first reward here, and that's status. So let me back up really quick, and then I'll explain a little bit more. So SAPS is a way for you to think about rewards that are beyond just stuff. And why I love this is because people do, in my experience, they hesitate a little bit to implement a full reward system because it could be expensive. How am I going to pay for all these hoodies and mugs and challenge coins and all of that sort of stuff? I've done that before as well, but how am I going to do this? Well, there are other rewards like status, access, and power that don't necessarily require you to, to get funding or a lot of funding. So let's come back to status really quick, because again, this is one of my favorite examples. When you get promoted, okay, think about what actually matters to you. Is it, okay, you get a little bit more in your paycheck, great. But is that it? Or is it actually the recognition of the work that you've been doing? Is it these other elements? Is it the status that you gain from others? You've sort of increased in level, if you will. It's access to other, leaders, et cetera, maybe meetings you weren't invited to before, et cetera. And then the power, the ability to make decisions, to be part of decisions, et cetera. Is that really what's attractive about that promotion? I would argue yes. And I would also say that has a very strong parallel to what we see in a lot of games. Okay, as you create a character, you're going through levels, et cetera, and you're actually gaining status, you're leveling up, and you're getting more power, you're getting more access to levels, et cetera. So again, I would say that is a direct correlation between a gamification concept and something that we use in a corporate environment. Let me pause there, and then I do want to kind of go through a little bit more ideas and details about the rewards here. But does that make sense?
And for people who know Hoxhunt, who have used it, they know that we use that a lot in the product. That actually, for example, you have those shields who are kind of levels in the game. Base, you get more stars every time you do the right thing, the right behavior. And the more stars you get, the more advanced shield you reach. And I have so many friends actually of mine who do not work with security, but they happen to be in an organization that uses Hoxhunt. And they come to me all the time and they say, oh, I'm now at the wood shield or the metal shield or the titanium shield. And they're so proud of sharing that with me, but because of course of my job, but also because it really creates that positive feeling of elevation in status in a way.
Absolutely. And that's a good segue, because I will say, and I've come across folks who are like, hey, I don't really care about shields. I don't really care about stars. But is there, and you really should think about how you can translate what they're earning into actual real world rewards that mean something beyond just shields and stars, et cetera. So as an example, if people are leveling up to certain shields and so forth, does that come with recognition as well, right? Hey, this person, and maybe there's an all hands meeting, et cetera, where you can call these people out. Hey, here are the folks who just leveled up recently. Nice work. They're being security conscious, et cetera, right? Their manager sees that, et cetera. So I think that's really important. And then having maybe other rewards in the access realm, that second, category. Maybe they get access to certain tools or people or information because they leveled up that they didn't have before, lunch with the CISO or lunch with a C-level or something like that. Or one of my favorite rewards in the access area is more information about incidents or breaches that might have happened at your company. So that's something people are very, very curious about if you want to talk about motivators. Hey, I just read that news article. Okay, but have we ever experienced something like that as an example? People want to know that, but you can't just blast that out to everyone, right? So maybe there's a certain level that you can reach where you now have more access to information like that. Don't share everything, of course, but more than before. And that could be very attractive to folks. And then power-wise, to what extent, we talked about this early, but when you're creating relationships, I think it's important to listen to folks as well. So maybe there's a certain level where people just get invited to your steering group or your planning group for your champion and awareness program in general. They've earned their way into something like that, and now they can help you tailor the entire program. So that gives them the power of providing feedback and being part of decisions, which they can, again, earn their way into through shields, et cetera. And then there's always stuff, and stuff works. I shared a coin before. I've made mugs and stickers and that sort of stuff. I think people do respond well to this. It's just the point is, that's not the only tool at your disposal.
And I think what the things that you show, the swag items now, it doesn't need to be expensive. It's actually not expensive for a company to buy coffee cups or a cup. But they work because if they're branded with the Security Champions program logo, for example, then it improves also, this status and maybe feeling of belonging. So it contributes to other elements. It's not just about getting financial reward. It's actually an item that shows that you belong to something special. And I think that's why they work without being expensive.
Exactly. Yeah. And then you can even turn around and reward folks for helping spread the word about the program by displaying these things, displaying stickers, et cetera. So yeah, there's a lot of possibilities there, but this is where one of the points I love to make here is, are you having fun as the person who's designing your awareness and champion program? Are you having fun with this? Because I can guarantee if you're not having fun, no one else is going to have fun either. So get into it, make stickers that you're excited about, build a program of rewards and status, et cetera, that really gets you excited, So I think that's huge, because people are looking to you, do you care about this? And if you're kind of like, whatever, that's the exact attitude other people are going to take too. So get excited. All right. I already pretty much touched on these, but let me restate them. So people respect the people on their team. So they're more likely to listen to them. That's one reason why these programs work. They can translate the message into the context of their team. There's an efficiency factor here too, where your champions can be responsible for something that maybe others are not, so that the entire team doesn't have to necessarily do certain tasks, right? The champions are responsible for certain things. And then specialization as well. So this is a way to really think about, instead of having like I was just saying, your entire org do certain things, having champions attend those trainings, translate the message, right? So instead of having a live event that's for your entire company, maybe it's for the champions so that they can distill the message down or the learning down from that session for the context of their team. So those last two, efficiency and specialization, are kind of related. All right, how to get started. Go ahead. Did you have a question?
Yeah. In the past, I've heard organizations actually say, we tried security champions and it didn't work for us. With their culture in the company, it didn't work. So can security champions really work everywhere? How does the organizational culture of the company affect these programs?
I do think they can work everywhere. I have seen these types of programs work in a variety of different cultures. There are things you need to keep in mind, though. And again, I mentioned before, you can't just take something that worked over here and drop it into your environment and expect it to work. I do think it's sort of this thing. I was just thinking about this morning, actually, where it's a little bit of an all or nothing type of deal. If you're not excited, if you don't have manager leadership support, if it's not a volunteer program, there's kind of all of these holes that you could fall into along the way. But if you get those things right, they can work for your environment. And my guide really outlines that, because it asks you to set a specific vision and mission, et cetera, for your champion program, which again is really the vision and mission for your awareness program in general. It's just a way to get there, right? Utilizing the champions to carry that message and be your early adopters, et cetera, of the changes that you want to make. That's what works. So I actually do have, and maybe this is a good link to share. We wrote up at Katilyst a top 10 blunders document or article that really outlines the most common reasons that we see these champion programs fail. So that might be a really good thing to kind of go through and make sure that you're not doing, more or less.
We'll share the link in the chat also just now.
Great. All right. Kind of, maybe in the interest of time, I will go through this very quickly, because a lot of this is captured in that guide that I mentioned before. And I've been talking about this the whole time. So vision, where do you want to end up? Participants, really understanding the folks that you want to reach, your audience, and what motivates them. Keep in mind the BMAP, BJ Fogg's model. What is actually going to motivate your participants? So there's some analysis that you can and should do, in my view, to really understand where they're coming from. And the setting, what is the current environment? What is leadership reinforcing? Where are some concerns that you might have in terms of adoption, certain pockets of folks who may not understand this, et cetera. It's important to capture that up front as well. Concept, how do we actually want the participants to behave? So I use a concept called ideal actions. Ideally, you would want your champions and the rest of your org to take specific actions. And this goes beyond awareness. I think this is a huge point. Awareness sounds very passive, right? Hey, we communicated, people are aware. Okay, but how do you prove that? A, and B, can and should you take that to the next level so that you're actually reinforcing people doing things, whatever those things are, that are in line with your vision and goals? So I think it's important to list those out. We want people to report security issues. We want them to identify phishing emails. We want them to use secure file sharing techniques, and so forth. Like, listing that, I think, is really important. And then figuring out how to motivate folks. So this goes back to the BMAP model. It goes back to motivators, gamification, rewards, etc. Now that you know what actions you want them to take, how are you going to design a system that's tailored for your environment to actually reinforce folks doing those things? And then how are you going to deliver it? Is it a big bang? Is it a grassroots? What does this look like in terms of leadership support and so forth? And then there's always a tuning phase where you have to make adjustments along the way. Questions about this?
Yeah, I think a question that comes to me when I read this is it's linked to a challenge that I faced with my team in an organization that I worked with previously, is that we were not sure of what to measure in our Security Champions program, because sure, we could measure how many champions we had and how many people joined the sessions that we made, but that's reach and engagement, not behavior change and risk reduction. So what data would you recommend the participants of this webinar today to collect and share for their Security Champions program?
Yeah, it goes back to that risk that you found, right? So maybe you have discovered that people are clicking too many phishing emails, as an example, and that's creating risk for your organization that you can demonstrate because you had an incident that actually was caused by a phishing email in the past, let's say, just making up a scenario here. But using real world actual risks at your environment to reinforce actions that you want your champions to take is a way to come up with those metrics, right? Are we actually seeing a reduction in clicked phishing emails? Do we have more people reporting security issues? And so forth, right? So I think it comes back to your vision, your specific goals that you set, and then the specific actions that are in line with those goals, which again, your goals should be the same goals as your awareness program in general. And I would challenge folks who are thinking about their awareness program to go way beyond just, hey, we do awareness. We kind of communicate, the message, and it's October Cyber Month. And so we have a campaign. Well, okay, but how do you actually move that into behavior change across your organization? And then how do you measure that change? So does that help?
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think you have a success story to share with us that comes just after this slide.
Yes. So there are a few metrics that I captured that are a little more awareness focused. A lot of the champion program focus at Fivetran was for application security. But these two were really focused on more of that awareness aspect. And over time, we did come up with a few metrics that really demonstrated that the champion program was working. We had more reported phishing emails, and champions were way more likely to report those. And then there was a order of magnitude difference when it came to reporting security issues across the org. These are issues that we would have otherwise not known about at all. And then as a add-on to that, we had some champions who helped remediate those issues too. They stepped up and said, hey, we, in customer support, we keep doing these things. We need some sort of a guideline, for security best practices. And the champion was the one who created that, which I thought was amazing. And this kind of goes back to a few things I was talking about in terms of having a level up system at Fivetran. We did have a level system where the black belt was sort of the top tier. And the black belts, because we had so many rewards that came with that, the status, the power, access, etc., we had them inspired to do a lot of other things like I have listed here. So we had one of them who started a security focus group. People, that group would meet every other week and just talk about security. These are non-security people talking about security. It was amazing. Someone started a book club. We had a newsletter that was completely run by a black belt security champion and so forth. So here's the point. Can you imagine forcing this, like a CISO saying, hey, you random person, can you create a book club that's focused on cybersecurity? That's not going to happen, right? You have to inspire that over time by setting up a program much like this.
Thank you so much, Justin. It was great having you. After this, I feel really inspired to start a security champions program again, to be honest. I haven't done one in a while. And I think the success story that you shared and just now with these fantastic metrics about the champions reporting being 11 times more likely to report a security incident, this is real results. Those are the outcomes that we want to measure and to communicate about. So I'm going to read your guide in a lot more details now. And I really recommend everyone to have a look at this. And also, now we don't have the time to look at the common mistakes anymore, but we have shared the link about this also in the chat. So look at the top 10 blunders that can prevent a security champion program from achieving its full potential. And yeah, so thanks again, Dustin. Thank you so much for your time today, everyone. We'll be following up soon via email with the webinar recording and some related resources if you'd like to continue learning.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me, by the way. This has been fantastic.